Gabba the game night, Gabba the game night, Gabba the game night, yay!
Hey guys, Gabba TGK here, and I am playing some more Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and we are on our way to the Chaos Shrine to end this once and for all. To kill the Lufinians or something, I don't know.
This building did not exist, at least not according to the Lufinians' records. It was only first observed after the strangers were dispatched here. Why it appears when darkness proliferates remains a mystery, though my bet is that you, my dear friends, are intricately involved. Now that all of you have given yourselves over to chaos, it draws you together and serves as a focus for all your hopes. It is where your story begins, and where all will end.
Oh, I got a big break gauge now. It's all dark and stuff. Who is this plot? I love more plot. Oh, little Jack.
The Lufinians speak of this glorious future of theirs with reverence, but it is a future for who exactly? It is painfully obvious that any and all life in Cornelia has no place in their coming utopia, and in that sense their seemingly cruel actions are completely rational, at least from the perspective of maintaining balance. And that is precisely why I must ensure that your desperate plan succeeds, Jack. All the gears have been set in motion, all the pieces set in place. Travel to the heart of the Chaos Shrine to bring it all to an end.
Are these Astos' letters or the Fool's missives?
Kind of seems like it.
Oh, it bit me! It bit me! Wait, no.
That's not enough.
Chaos!
It's in his curse land.
Wait, give me a second. I think Lightbringer is already activated. Wait. Did I even take any mana from me? Oh, I have infinite mana. Nice. Now just to figure out how to progress the level. Oh wait, another Fool's Missive. Think.
When the harmonious balance that defines her collapses, in short, when the darkness of her crystal in her or her innate light undergo a sudden violent shift, a singularity that will warp the very fabric of this world will manifest. All the darkness in Cornelia will gather to her, and when it joins to her light, there will be no mutual annihilation, but a convergence leading to the birth of chaos. It is this very end that my dear friend must seek, painful though it may be for him to endure, for he needs her to fulfill this forgotten aim, and seeing her safe is the key to everything.
Okay.
So, shall we get back to the trivia?
Yeah, probably.
From the Did You Know section of the Final Fantasy Wiki, we've been doing this over the past several episodes. Sorry, I just need to find my place. Alright, red mages can cast 2 spells at once in many Final Fantasy games, but not in the original releases of Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy II.
Yeah.
Are there other versions of the original Final Fantasy where they can cast 2 spells at a time?
Not that I'm aware of.
It just specified in the original releases, so... The recurring sword Ragnarok is named after the Norse mythological battle that is said to end the world.
Yep.
Rangers can attack several enemies at once.
Gosh dang, another freaking ladder.
This world is Lufinia's playground, a laboratory for them to conduct their experiments in light and dark, with every living thing their lab animal. Jack was understandably... Did you just move the thing?
Yes.
I wasn't prepared for that. Jack was understandably filled with unspeakable fury when he learned this truth. He is a pure sword, and it is this very innocence that pushes him to rebel against his masters now, no matter how futile that struggle may be. Perhaps this aspect of his personality, too, was implanted in him by the Lufinians, but I chose to believe otherwise. Heart is what defines my Jack, and I will put my faith in that. Aw, my Jack. It was Jack who authored our ploy, and even if he forgets it, even if he forgets me, I will gladly risk life and limb to set him on the right path. We will sever our world from its unjust fate and set it spiraling to a chaotic void where it can finally be master of its own destiny. That is the least I can do to thank him and the others for accepting me as one of their own.
How the frick did Astos become the Astos in Final Fantasy 1?
This is not canon to Final Fantasy.
I know, but this is a theoretical prequel. Theoretically, this would happen right before Final Fantasy 1. Even if this doesn't happen before Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 1 would happen after this.
Alright, well, did you know that the Blood Sword heals its holder when used? You did know that.
Yes.
There were originally only 6 job classes, and now there are almost 100. The Enterprise, the Falcon, and the Invincible are the only recurring airships in the series. Onion Knight can be both the weakest and the strongest job class in the game in which it appears. The Onion Knight job class draws its inspiration from tales of common children not liking vegetables and overcoming this weakness as a mark of heroes.
You see, that's because it being the strongest and the weakest is because in the original Final Fantasy 3, multiple things. In the original Final Fantasy 3, it is your strong job, but once you get to level 99, it actually has like some of the highest stats. But also in the remake for Final Fantasy 3, the Onion Knight is a secret job class, which is the strongest one.
Well, did you know that the concept of limit breaks was introduced in Final Fantasy VI?
How so?
I don't know. I'm just reading it off the page here, pal. I didn't make this list.
Does it have a link?
Maybe. Could just be a typo, too.
Yeah.
Nope, here we go. Final Fantasy VI. Though the term limit break comes from Final Fantasy VII, the underlying idea of being able to use a powerful combat move by taking damage was used in Final Fantasy VI. Desperation attacks activate randomly when a character is in critical health and the attack command is issued. Desperation attacks are one-time high-powered attacks that ignore defense and sometimes cause instant death to an enemy. They hit one target and cannot be used twice in a battle. All playable characters except Gao and Umaru have a desperation attack.
I did not know that.
Neither did I.
Probably because we heal our party members.
Gogo's desperation attack cannot be used if they are not equipped with the attack command, nor can they mimic others. In a normal playthrough, one is more likely to heal than attack in low health, and thus desperation attacks are seen so rarely many players are unaware of their existence. Okay, we definitely gotta try that out when we do the Pixel Remaster.
Yeah.
Within the heart of the singularity he will be reborn, but to be merely reborn is not enough. He must accept the chaotic darkness of the singularity into his very soul. Following a similar principle to how the fiends manifest, it is emotion and despair merging that converts the gloom born from a singularity into true darkness. From this it should be evident that darkness will follow him wherever he goes, drawn ever to the gravitational well of his momentous despair. It is the darkness injected into this world and the darkness born and bred here that will guide him to the inevitable conclusion of our ploy. All that is left for him to use is to use the warp device I prepared to send himself and all his accompanying shadows to that pocket dimension of theirs. Our plan will end in failure if we cannot seize power to reset the world from them. Isn't that right, Jack?
Alright.
Hush. Nate. Sophia. Chaos.
Yeah, this level isn't very hard and stuff. Oh, that's kind of ass. Especially with infinite magic, I can just heal forever.
Did you know that Final Fantasy VIII uses hotels instead of inns?
Neat.
And that the Dreadnought was the first unrevisitable location in the series?
The Dreadnought is
From Final Fantasy II. Still
don't remember what it is. I don't remember a lot of Final Fantasy 2.
Well, if you want to refresh yourself on it, go check out our series at youtube.com/VDCTV.
Wow, I just might.
Final Fantasy VIII is the only game in the main series that doesn't feature equipable armor. The enemy Brachiorados has had its name translated 4 different ways. Brachiorados, Brachiosaur, Vlaukerados, and Thuaban. The super boss Yazmat of Final Fantasy XII was intended as an homage to an insult to director and former Square staff member Yasumi Matsuno. Far, far away lies a place that can only be considered another dimension. Here the Lufinians constructed what they call stations to serve their needs. Stations are like homes to the strangers, and in a sense, like a second home to me. From the various stations, the Lufinians monitor and control the very fate of the world. With cold rationality, they fine-tune the balance of light and dark, and even wield the power to reset existence if deemed necessary. A long time ago, you told me that you wished to completely sever our world from the Lufinians and wrest the power to reset the world from their grip. To this end, you hatched a plot and spoke at great length to me of my role within it. But enough history. This message is likely my final piece of guidance to you before you warp to Lufinia, Jack. Become Chaos. Free us from the shackles of our would-be gods.
Wow, there's an extra large Fool's Missive.
That's also 40, you realize.
Yes, I know. Is it XL?
Dancing Mad is the longest track recorded as a boss theme in the series, followed by Almighty Bunavels.
There's our portal to Lufinia.
Warning. Chaos infection. Warning. Chaos infection. Extraction denied. Extraction denied. Initiate immediate memory erasure and pacification.
Screw you. Screw you all.
Warning. Chaos infection. Warning. Chaos infection.
To breaking his way through.
Oh, that's impressive. Smash up light.
So if I want to enter this pool, I'm gonna enter this goddamn pool.
Did you know the soundtrack of Final Fantasy IX is Nobuo Uematsu's favorite?
Wow.
And in Final Fantasy II, the music preceding the battle with the Lamia Queen comes from the ballet Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky.
Wow.
And Nobuo Uematsu initially composed around 160 tracks for the soundtrack of Final Fantasy IX, but it would have required 6 CDs to release and was deemed too large.
Wow.
And we're back in the new field.
Station 19. Positive ID. Senior Agent Jack Garland.
He's completely corrupted.
But this wasn't in Astos' report.
He's a traitor. That's why.
Contagion confirmed.
Report.
Unknown. Suspected metaphysical anomaly. Corruption spreading.
If this continues, it'll reestablish our link to the old world.
Then we have no choice. Reset it.
I see no other option.
Activating dimensional crystal matrix. Preparing to initiate world reboot.
Agent Jack Garland, can you hear me?
Clear as day.
The station you're in is infected. We're going to reinitialize it along with the old world. We've got no other choice.
Who do you think you are?
He's unintelligible.
Likely due to chaos corruption.
Jack, acknowledge.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
He said fuck.
That's my favorite moment in the original Final Fantasy.
Go and said fuck.
I was saying it was Chaos that said it, but either way, the words of light approach. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I'll rip that power from your hands and make it my own!
Okay, now he's saying it a little too far. It's one thing to take the power, but now he's like, I want the power.
All time to defeat the Dimensional Crystal Matrix. How do I defeat a Dimensional Crystal Matrix? Oh, that's how. Wow, why did they give it such a big health bar if I'm just gonna destroy it? Wait, give me a second. Oh, I no longer have my infinite. I am now once again mortal.
What is that?
Analyzing.
You're wasting your time. This soul is mine to devour. A feast fit for chaos. to me as their lord.
Is it time for final boss yet?
Time for more trivia. Final Fantasy XII is the first main series game in which KO'd characters disappear as opposed to falling over and passing out.
I know who you are.
Wow, it's essentially chaos. Instead, it doesn't have that bullet face on his stomach. Neither has a mouth.
Shut up. The mantle of chaos is mine. I claim your darkness as my own. You asked for it. Just don't flinch from what you see.
Huh? Oh god, I gotta do a boss fight all by myself. Ah! Rude?
I thought that said malicious wafers at first. He was like throwing evil crackers at you. Alright, back to trivia while you fight chaos. In the Final Fantasy XII International Zodiac Job System, a number of new weapons are added, each with a letter at the end of their name. In order from the weakest to the strongest weapon, the letters spell out Final Fantasy.
Wow!
Save for Almacy's gunblade, the Hyperion, is named after a Greek titan. Shiriji Raiden Kazari Tsurugi is the true name of the Shirajardan weapon. Apologies if I pronounced any of that incorrectly. Chaos Shrine is both the first and the final dungeon of the original Final Fantasy.
Same with this.
I'll always remember it as the Temple of Fiends. Final Fantasy The Spirits Within broke records when it was released 14 years after the first Final Fantasy because it had the longest wait for a movie based on a game franchise. So that's a weird note. I mean, technically a lot of unmade movies would also be able to claim that.
I only had like 0.1 second to
You know, we're still waiting on that Space Invaders movie.
Yo, Space Invaders movie? Fog. This may be a long fight, because I really don't want to die, so I'm taking this slow.
Okay, well, back to trivia.
And also, Maddie needs time to do trivia.
I got like 3 things left.
Oh gosh, dang it.
I don't know how much is left, but we are getting toward the end. Final Fantasy The Spirits then broke records as the biggest budget for a game licensed movie with a budget of $137 million. Nobuo Uematsu composed the prelude as a last-minute addition to the original Final Fantasy and took nearly 10 minutes doing so.
10 minutes to make one of the most iconic songs.
I know, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I fell in the delivery.
Yeah, let's just move on. The longest track in the series is ending theme from Final Fantasy VI with a duration of 20 minutes.
Alright.
Each console, the Final Fantasy...
So the ending theme is about as long as the ending?
Yeah, well that makes sense.
But I thought the ending was a half hour.
Each console, the Final Fantasy main series up to Final Fantasy XII has been originally released on. NES, SNES, PlayStation, and PlayStation 2 has had 3 main series games.
Huh. Interesting.
It is never known exactly where the Flying Fortress and the Tower of Zot are. Final Fantasy XIV, as it was originally released, was the first Final Fantasy game with a soundtrack completely composed by Nobuo Ematsu. I'm sorry about that first name's giving me trouble. And I wanted to pronounce it correctly, and I may have failed anyway. But it's the first one composed by them since Final Fantasy IX. It has since had tracks added by various Square Enix composers. There are over 10 different names used for summons in the series. Blue Fields was the first main theme that included the use of a real instrument, a xylophone, instead of just synthesizers. The dancers of the Dealing City Parade in Final Fantasy VIII are performing the dance moves from Michael Jackson's Thriller music video.
Okay.
Spears are equipable weapons in every main series game but the original Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy VIII. The moon plays an important role in Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy XIV, and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates. Outer space is visited in Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, and Final Fantasy XIV. When did we go to space in Final Fantasy VII? Oh yeah, the rocket ship, never mind.
I was gonna say before Kafka.
In Final Fantasy VII.
Not Kafka, Sephiroth, sorry. When did he take a rocket ship?
Sid?
Yeah, but that... He never actually gets to space.
Well, that's something I can think of.
As I said, when you fight Sephiroth, when he does Supernova.
Well, yeah, but I don't think they were counting that.
Well, I can't see anything else.
Well, there's no way that counts. It's just an animation for a summons. It's not even a summon, it's an animation for a spell.
And can you think of any other moment?
I had the rocket ship.
But he doesn't get to space.
Well,
He was gonna go to space, but then he didn't get to it.
no,
Mission failed.
That's all I got. Final Fantasy VII was the first Final Fantasy game to have guns as equipable weapons. The Final Fantasy series draws liberally from Japanese, Greek, Hindu, and Judeo-Christian mythology. Blinded by Light was the first piece of music Masashi Hamauzu composed for Final Fantasy XIII. Battle at the Big Bridge is the most officially recorded of all the tracks in the Final Fantasy series, having 10 official arrangements in total.
People love that song. I don't really remember.
The soundtrack for Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII was released on Valentine's Day as an homage to the game's protagonist, Vincent Valentine. Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII is one of the only games in the series to represent the Omega weapon in a story role rather than a super boss.
Eliminate the target.
Potion energy drinks have been released in Japan as Final Fantasy merchandise.
That sounds amazing.
There exists a Final Fantasy IX Coca-Cola TV commercial that was only shown in Japan.
Yeah, I think I know that.
Final Fantasy fragrances have been released in Japan as merchandise. Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII and Cloud Strife and Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII have their signature scents in the product range.
Yes. Cloud's signature scent. Of course. Please tell me, what does Cloud Strife smell like?
Emo boys and big swords.
Emo boys and big swords.
Honeybee Inn in Final Fantasy VII has plenty of hidden scenes existing in the game data as dummied content. The entire fight sequence between Tifa Lockhart and Laz in Advent Children has been duplicated for Korean pop singer Ivy MV's Sonata of Temptation music video. The music video was banned and singer Ivy was sued by Square Enix for copyright infringement. Wow, really? It's a little lame, Square.
Yeah. Square can be lame sometimes. I know, like, some fans making a 3D Chrono Trigger remake. And it's like, I understand they're still kind of selling Chrono Trigger, but it's like...
Well, that's a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, just doing a dance routine
Yeah.
as homage to a game, and you're gonna be like, no, it's copyright.
Yeah.
Not enough.
The Square can be a joke sometimes. Not as bad as Nintendo, though. Nintendo, you release a fan game, it's gone in freaking 24 hours. I have Super again. Oh wow, Chaos, oh wow. Oh, you're so strong.
Let's see. Pandora's
Oh,
Box, cast by Dragon Zombie in Final Fantasy VII, is the only action that can only be used once by an enemy in the entire series. Serendipity, the casino in Final Fantasy 13-2, was inspired by the gold
What?
saucer from Final Fantasy VII. You died.
How did I die?
We'll see when
He
you're
insta-killed me!
when you're no longer living. That's when you're dead.
He insta-killed me!
How
Oh my
much-
god, I have to go to that first freaking part. That took like 20 minutes. And this time, hopefully I won't mess it up. So I can think when I can... I think when I'm a god, I'd just, you know, not die. It's like I can block for literally as long as I want. Oh, but that can't be blocked.
Alright, back with more Final Fantasy trivia. Wrapping it up now. Eris's ghost can appear in the Sector 5 church in Final Fantasy VII. Really? I thought that was just a rumor.
No, I think it's a real thing.
Not sure I ever had any reason to revisit it when I was playing the game, so...
I think it might have to do something specific or something. I don't remember.
Anyway, the electronic board in the Purge train in Final Fantasy XIII displays references to the stations of a Sobu mainline railway line in Japan through displaying the words Chiba, Inage, etc. in Cocoon script. The worlds of Final Fantasy XIII and Final Fantasy XIII-2 have 3 different lettering systems. The airships in Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2 are called the Fahrenheit and the Celsius, respectively.
Wow.
Vaughn is the first leading protagonist in the main series whom the player cannot name for themselves. I think we covered that earlier. The city of Edge in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII shares its name with the setting of an earlier work of Squaresoft and Tetsuya Nomura, the Bouncer. What the hell is the compilation of Final Fantasy VII?
Isn't that what the whole extended universe is called?
Is it? I'm not familiar with it. That's why I said that. Yeah, I guess so.
I'm being a bit more careful this time. No.
Alright, we're back to trivia. Phoenix Downs work as offerings to the mythical Phoenix itself to return recently departed souls, with beauty and aesthetics as a crucial factor. That's not really trivia. That's a weird entry. Anyway, Final Fantasy XIII is the only mainline game where the player cannot use an airship for transport.
Yeah, that goes to one hallway.
Disney once commissioned a Final Fantasy IV comic, and work on it was started before the idea was scrapped, as evidenced by this cover art. And I clicked on it, and it's okay. It just takes me to various logos and cover arts from Final Fantasy.
Oh, well, I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, but I'm not digging through it. Oh my god, I love the characters from the Wonder Swan version of the original Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Their characterizations in the instruction manual that came with it, or sorry, the strategy guides.
You see, this fight's fairly easy, but he does a lot of damage. So it's a scary fight.
Uh-huh.
It's like if you mess up, you're just dead.
Why would Disney commission a Final Fantasy IV comic, though?
I
That's
don't
so
know.
Weird.
Sometimes Disney makes weird decisions.
Anyway, the Chimera, or Chimera as I like to say, is the only monster to have appeared in some form in all of the first 12 games of the main series. Composer Masayoshi Soken wrote the boss theme To the Edge while in the hospital for cancer.
Wow.
The weapons refrain, an ultimate difficulty duty in Final Fantasy XIV, can only be completed once the players wake up Ifrit, Titan, and Garuda by doing certain mechanics incorrectly.
Okay.
And finally, the last entry in the Final Fantasy Wiki Did You Know section. Guitar company Fender released a custom electric guitar to celebrate the release of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. And thus ends our Final Fantasy trivia for the day. And the series, I suppose. Because I do believe we're at the finale here. As Chaos takes down Chaos.
I suppose every time I do a soul breaker thing on one of his attacks, he loses a little bit of his break gauge.
This fight is meta as fuck.
Meta or metal?
I guess both, but I was going meta because we have Chaos defeating Chaos. Wow.
Right here. What?
I just, on my computer screen over here, there was a video and I wanted to see something about it really quickly. It's a YouTube page I had up. So I clicked on the video for a second, and I got a 45-minute ad for what is a 25-minute video.
What's the ad longer than you want the veil?
Yeah, it's almost double, and it's ad 1 of 2.
What the frick?
I mean, somebody's got to really be into this ad to be like, yeah, I'm going to stick around for that.
The second one is the same ad.
I don't know, I can skip both ads.
Yeah.
I'm not staying around and watching this whole 45-minute
Honestly,
video.
I'm not a big fan of YouTube's whole 2 ads thing. It used to be that, oh yeah, you get 1 ad. But then they're like, what if we put 2 ads instead? And like, that's annoying. Oh god. Come on, man, you're almost dead.
No!
My button didn't work! Alright. Die, Chaos! Finally, after like freaking an hour of freaking fighting this man. This for my friends that I killed, when none of us wearing those clothes when they died. Oh, he went Super Saiyan. Oh, hey, I got Ultima Sword, thank God. What would I do if I didn't get Ultima Sword there? There's so much more to do. So glad I got Ultima Sword.
Central has given clearance to isolate and detach Station 19. Control is to be transferred to the next station.
Agent Garland, you are hereby discharged. Goodbye, Jack. Lufenia thanks you for your service.
You give Central a message of resignation for me. You'll never cast off your shackles to the old world. Not as long as you continue to flush your darkness into Cornelia. So I'll bide my time, gather my strength, and use that link to return someday. Mark my words. I'll be back to wipe all of you from existence. I'll burn your precious Lufenia to the ground.
That is absurd.
You saw the power I now wield.
Chaos, unpredictable, uncontrollable. While
While you're down there, Jen, do remember to keep an eye out for the Warriors of Light. Balance is everything. Champions will arise one day to bring you low.
What the hell do you know about Cornelia? Here's a tip. There's no such thing as the Warriors of Light. They're just empty hopes, false dreams, childish fantasy. Who knows more about what makes a warrior of light than us? I get it now. Hey, boss, don't bother sending any more strangers.
What are you talking about? What's so funny? Answer up!
Not a chance!
Alright. Back to the Chaos Shrine. Waiting for it to load. Well, that looks a little different. Am I back 2,000 years in the past yet? This back to... No, okay. Just Jack walking.
The reset was successful. This was all part of our plan, wasn't it, Ash?
Now for the Jack walking simulator.
It was never a mercy to forget. You were right. And I should have listened. Hold on. Sorry to get you mixed up in all of this. Thanks for sticking with us till
You called your Congress rep?
Sophia,
Sorry.
this is now a
No?
round.
What are you waiting for?
Let those bastards use it as their playthrough. Those of you who love Cornelia, never give up hope. The Warriors of Light will come one day.
Welcome to my doors.
I can't believe I actually had to press the button to open that.
Oh yeah, Jack's throne. That's way too big for him. Well, maybe not that big. It kind of fits. And there's my four fiends.
Welcome home. Don't you think it's a little dark in here?
We're storing it all here for now. It's still about 2,000 years before the reign of our friend, the king.
We wove the threads of darkness to pull you back through time.
Rufenia's tentacles can't reach us here.
You're in a good mood. I've got a fun plan.
Do tell.
We'll train the Warriors of Light ourselves.
Interesting.
How?
The Warriors of Light will be born in Cornelia, just like you were, Neon.
Of course. They're Cornelia's hope after all. Makes sense they'd be from there.
Hope, despair. Rufenia won't dictate these terms to anyone anymore. I've been wondering, when did you all start scheming to turn me into chaos.
He's good.
Better than good. Only Jack can fight like that.
Glad to see he's back. Took long enough.
What?
Our memories are fragmented and complete. But then we started putting all the pieces together.
It was touch and go there for a while. You've never figured it out without those hints Astos gave us.
Well, there were some unplanned sacrifices. And yet we pulled it off. Kudos to the brilliant mastermind behind it all.
Mastermind. Astos, I want you to be my accomplice. With your help, we may be able to change things next time.
Be safe, Jack. May the crystal's blessing be with you, always.
Sarah, I'd like you to have this.
But this is very special to you. You've never even let me touch it before.
A friend gave me some advice once. He said, you've got to be crazy if you want to change the world.
And is that what this is? Crazy?
Perhaps, but it's only the beginning.
And what happens next?
Let's see. How about I spirit you away to my dark castle?
Father will send his armies.
Oh, I won't stand a chance. But the Lord of Chaos might. Maybe I should change jobs.
Then the warriors of light will come.
They're welcome to.
And then they look up at nothing. Is that the end of the demo cutscene?
There's more.
PlayStation, get out of here.
By shadow, we await that fateful day when the warriors of light arise. Although their glow may be faded first, even a sputtering candle is brilliant against the black of night. And so, we will plunge this world into the depths of darkness.
Is he wearing an earring on his helmet?
Oh, it's the Warriors of Light. Masons.
Oh, where are we now?
Oh, this one, Garland takes Princess Sarah.
I bet she goes willingly with him.
Oh yeah, take me.
The statue's crying.
Didn't we see the scene at the beginning of the game as well?
Yeah. Seriously, though, this game is really dope. I like it a lot. I mean, accepting it not being official canon. Because if you make it canon to the original game, it makes no sense. I mean, the Leftfinish are not some sort of godlike beings who manipulate the world. They're just like the Sky Warriors who were defeated by Chaos. And the Warriors of Light aren't born in Cornelia, they arrive there. And Cornelia is not the entire world or the center of the world, it's just one of the kingdoms in the world.
Yeah.
And of course this whole, oh, I'm Chaos, and to save the world from the Lefinians, I have to threaten it, and how does that work? I thought you just had to disconnect from them. Once you did that, you should be fine. You shouldn't have to be Chaos then.
I guess we'll like Chaos is the darkness of the world, and if they defeat Chaos, they defeat the darkness.
But at the same time, I really like the game. Like I say, it's not my preferred gameplay style.
And also the scene is awesome.
But at least as far as the story, it's really cool.
Man, look, all in this strong and then it's defeated by some level 1 warriors. Level 1 fighter who just arrived in Cornelia defeats Garland. With the entire freaking castle guard couldn't defeat.
Yeah, Garland's not a very strong boss.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Well, you see, maybe he let the boys of light beat him.
Yeah. This game does sort of reframe that possibility.
It's like, yeah, he could have beat them. He just let them. Epic scene, though.
And still, there's more.
So how you doing, princess? Oh yeah, it's kind of like the bird scene, but but instead it's Garland.
Except he hasn't crossed the bridge. You don't cross the bridge to get to the Temple of Fiends, aka
Yeah,
the
no,
Chaos
still at
Shrine.
the castle in the background. It's kind of the same framing-ish.
So again, really
That'd be
cool.
a cool wallpaper.
Really cool as long as it's not canon.
Well, anyway, thanks for watching this series on Gabba the Game Night. I probably won't come back to this unless the DLC is just that cool. But like, comment, subscribe, go check out Fantasy. And most importantly,
we did it our way.
Good night.
Gabba the Game Night, Gabba the Game Night, Gabba the Game Night, yay. Come on and watch him play games every other day. If you subscribe now, you won't miss out on any of the action. So come on, click that subscribe button.